Welcome back to your favorite channel that covers everyone's favorite blue anthropomorphic goober and his little buddy. That, of course, being Mordecai and Rigby from the regular show. You guys have asked for it, and so here I am to talk about the story titled 25 Years Later. 25 Years Later starts off shortly after the end of the original series. Mordecai and Rigby are recounting a very regular show sounding plot involving a creature known as Lord Cleanbone, which eventually resulted in them learning the importance of brushing their teeth, and also they hacked a global telecom network. Anywho, shortly after this, Benson informs Mordo and Riggs that they are out of ice, and so the two head out into town to go get some. However, on their way there, they find a strange alley at the intersection of 8th and 11th Street, which is important for later. And so they decide to go down this alley due to the fact that it is 8:11 p.m. Along this alley, the duo end up getting mugged by a little goblin-looking guy, and the chase is on. They end up in a strange world, and Mordecai is totally ready to get out of here. However, they are informed by whatever this thing is that they can't buy ice, and everyone's going to think that they are lying about being responsible adults. So the two go on the hunt, and they eventually wind up in a bar made specifically for drink people, and these people don't take very kindly to regular creatures. Luckily for them, though, a little regal elf appears in the floor and ends up saving the day. Once through this trapdoor in the floor, the duo would arrive in a mirrored magic town, and it's there where we would be introduced to this character, Alberich. Alberich, through silly little songs, informs the duo that he knows where they can get ice for free. This prompts the group to go on a heist where they would steal a bunch of ice from a giant, and the two would have an absolute blast doing so, as it would remind them of their glory days. Mordecai would end up agreeing with Rigby that he missed out on this time, and he would do anything to get it back. And it's right there that we would learn from Alberich that he's really not a great guy. With the ice brought back into their world, everything seems normal, until Mordecai and Rigby wake up the next morning and find themselves 25 years younger. The group would find a letter from Alberich informing them that he has exchanged their lost youth for their children, and with that, the two would freak out as Skips walks in. The two would have no choice but hunt down Alberich, and so Rigby decides to use his butt hair to disguise himself and Mordecai to make themselves look older. This completely fails though, and so the two would just jump out of the window and run off. Together, along with Skips, they would end up running into town and they would try to find this alley. However, interestingly, the alley isn't here, and that's because it's 8:13 rather than 8:11. And so they need to figure out a plan to get in here, and the plan that they come up with is anytime at all. To do this weird plan, the duo ends up running for mayor, and coincidentally, today is election day. They get signs out everywhere, they even have a plane going overhead of Benson, and they end up making a shady deal with some people, which results in the two winning to the shock of everyone, including their wives who are watching this on TV and have no idea what's going on with their husbands right now. With the win, the two would make their first elected decision to change the street name in order to make it match Rigby's watch. The portal is then opened, but before they go in, they give a call to the previous mayor and they let him know that he can have his title back, much to his joy. Then, in the magic world, the trio would find their kids, though something is very wrong. Their kids are all dressed like royal children, and they have zero memories of their old fathers. In fact, they even call Alberich Papa Alberich now. After being rejected by their own children, the trio overhear a royal beadle explaining to Alberich that his real son, Travels, is planning on staging a revolt against him, and that would be really bad. So Skips makes a deal with Alberich. If Mordecai and Rigby could make his bad son and bad daughter into a good son and good daughter, he would give him back their children. Through absolutely pure chance, once returning into the real world, Mordecai and Rigby would find Travels at a roller skating rink. Turns out that Travels has been paying skaters to be his friends, and he's been running a little bit thin on cash, so these people are hanging out less and less with him. With this, Mordo and Riggs would make a deal that they would teach him how to make real friends who like him for who he is, and so they would take him to Muscleman and Starless trailer home, and it turns out that these two have been very busy, as they seem to have at least 8 kids running around outside, and as we'll see later on, there are also kids running around inside. Initially, the two would get High Five Ghost to come in and try to talk to him, as High Five's Ghost is a really nice guy. However, Travels is pretty rude to the guy, and High Five's Ghost has better things to do than to hang out with a guy who's just going to be rude. So High Five Ghost just leaves there, and they decide that they're going to have to use Muscle Man. However, after calling Mitch's family hideous, Muscle Man kicks them out, and so extreme measures are going to have to be taken. In order to do this, Mordecai and Rigby would head off to Astronaut Gym, and they would find some astronauts to take them into space. Once into space, they would head off to what I think is Pops' planet, and there they would find their sealed away item, the Time Orb. Using the Time Orb, Travels is locked into a never-ending interaction with Muscle Man until the two finally end up talking with each other, and they become friends. Travels makes his first real friend, but Muscle Man is kind of stuck in a time loop. Whoops. Meanwhile, during this whole ordeal, Mordecai and Rigby's partners, Eileen and Steph, are understandably pretty pissed with their partners, as they have no idea what is happening here or where anyone has gone off to. Now, although Muscle Man is trapped, thanks to comic shenanigans, the two manage to get rid of the orb, and Muscle Man would make an iconic "my mom" joke, only to then reveal that his mom is dead, which is awkward. With that, Treble takes the two to Portusha, his bad sister. She loves video games and she won't do any work. And to Mordecai and Rigby, this is perfect considering that this is exactly who they used to be. However, they can't seem to get Portusha to do anything at all, and so the big guns need to be brought in. It's time to get Benson. However, Benson arriving here would mean that they would also have to explain to Benson everything that had happened, which is a lot to explain. Benson would then hire Portusha and he would struggle to get her to do any kind of work. He would then try to get her to clean up the old games as well as old magical artifacts left behind by Mordecai and Rigby. I'm particularly really fond that the excellent hat is just sitting there. That's a pretty good reference. However, after realizing that all these magical artifacts are here, the two would end up taking Benson and then throw him into the pile. Once combined with all of the awesome power, Benson would be turned into a living giant video game thing. And the three would be pulled inside, with Portusha absolutely falling in love with this work game. However, moving into the next level, they would find themselves surrounded by lava, and thankfully they would be rescued by none other than Mordecai's ex, Margaret. Margaret, surprisingly, is also still pretty young, and we would learn that she is permanently young due to a magic mirror that she found at a truck stop. Then, though, to make things even worse and to add to the drama, Mordecai and Rigby's wives would enter. Oh, and Benson is still trapped as a giant video game monster thing. After some awkward tension between Steph and Margaret, the two guys would end up getting an earful from their wives after learning that they lost their kids. Portusha would then get Benson up and running again, and a crazed Benson robot would end up taking over the world and turning everything into a work-related video game, which would reward people with coins for Benson. The group would head out, and through some platforming, they would make it into Benson's room, where they would destroy his computer. Portusha would then have to do a computer education minigame and learn a bunch about computer programming. With that knowledge, she would then jump inside of Benson and manage to turn him back to normal. We would also get a pretty sweet moment between Mordecai and Steph after this, as she is pretty jealous about Margaret, but everything turns out well in the end as Mordecai lets her know that he still really likes her and he's doing all of this so that he can be back to being with her. With that, Margaret is gone with Chopper 6 as she really enjoys being young and does not want to undo this curse as it gives her a great career on camera. And the day is saved. The two bad kids have been made good and finally they can get their children back. Except there's one little caveat here. Yes, they have their children back, but with his children, Alberich is now going to conquer the world. Mordecai and Rigby would get their kids back, but there would be a fight brewing, and so with their trusty golf cart, they would have no choice but to head out and fight the forces of chaos for 24 years straight. Nearly a quarter of a century into the future, Alberich and his children would have completely controlled the world, and the only thing left would be a small resistance with Mordecai and Rigby inside of it. The two, along with their kids, would fight the good fight as they fought against Alberich and all of his monsters. And finally, they found a time where they could take down Alberich and his kids. We would learn that all three of them were going to be in one place together at the 25-year anniversary speech, and this would be their chance to take them down. Specifically Mordecai and Rigby's chance, as thankfully Alberich has made it so that everybody going here has to be dressed as Mordecai and Rigby 25 years ago when they went for ice. So Mordecai and Rigby head out in, and this plan immediately backfires as they get caught almost instantly by Alberich, who realizes that Mordecai and Rigby are in the audience. With that, the two of them desperately try to convince Alberich's children to turn on Alberich as the clock counts up to the 25-year countdown. And shockingly, the moment it hits 25 years, everything turns back to how it was 25 years ago before Mordecai and Rigby made their deal with Alberich. This, we would learn, was all part of Alberich's deal. The group got back not only 25 years of life, but 25 years of adventure. And everybody is understandably pretty miffed with Alberich here. So they would end up strapping him to the top of a rocket, and he would then be launched into space. Alberich would then find the time orb, and he would be trapped with it forever. So with Alberich defeated, Mordecai and Rigby would head out, and in a really sweet moment, they would promise to keep in touch and not have to wait another 25 years to talk again. As Mordecai would end up heading out, he would get a text from Rigby, and honestly, it's a really sweet story. I really enjoyed this story. It was a lot of fun. The art is super great in it, and in general, I'm a really big Regular Show fan, so of course this really called out to me. There was a lot of really good references found within it, and if I had more time to talk about it, I absolutely feel like I could really dive into it. But that there is the end of this video, and I want to thank you for sticking around with yet another one of my regular show comic videos. This for sure has nothing to do with the date being April 1st, and there for sure will not be any other kind of video relating to a 25 years later comic book coming out this weekend. If you enjoyed this video, as always, I would enjoy a like, subscribe, or anything else, but at the end of the day, I am not your boss. I cannot tell you what to do. I just hope that you have a good one.